Everyone, and welcome to the Industry Distilled. I am your host, Elaine Duff, and I'm here with my co-host, Jason Littrell.
Hi, this time.
He actually knows he's here.
Yeah.
Our guest this week is the author of I'm Just Here for the Drinks, the host of the Speakeasy podcast, and the beverage director for Amargo. Sorry, word tumbler for Friday morning.
It's a tongue twister. It always has been.
Please welcome Sother Teague.
Hey guys, happy to be here.
So excited to have you with us.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. So here are the headlines for the week of September 21st. Sexism and whiskey. Why you shouldn't be reading the Whiskey Bible, at least according to some people. Can craft whiskey survive the pandemic? UK bars take another hit as the 10 p.m. curfew goes into place, and 2020 summer trends that will likely continue into O&D. So to kick us off, let's talk about the story of the week that everybody seems to be talking about, which is sexism and whiskey. So just to give a little backstory for those of you who might not have been paying attention. So this story kicked off on Twitter by a whiskey expert, Betty Paskin, and has since picked up steam and is spreading all along the industry, internet, and publications like Forbes and The Times have really started writing about this. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions. So for those of you not be aware, here's a little bit of backstory about Jim Murray. So Jim Murray was one of the first writers who did a lot of substantial work about whiskey when nobody really gave a shit. He's been self-publishing for over 19 years. And to date, he has made over 4,500 whiskey reviews. And he has sold over 1 million copies of the Whiskey Bible. So pretty impressive for a man just doing it all on his own. So despite this, despite the fact that he has many fans, he's not always so popular with whiskey community. Many mock him for his choices of his award-winning whiskeys, his extensive 14-step process. I have read it; it is a bit odd, and for tasting whiskey, and his overuse of the term "best whiskey." So basically saying he kind of waters it down because he has a lot of best whiskeys out there and a lot of things called like liquid gold. I've never read it, so I don't know. But this is not what the community is in uproar about. So the industry is in uproar because Mr. Murray turns out to be a little bit of a perv and likes to compare his whiskey to women. And unfortunately, people of today, especially women, are not very happy with him. So to give you some excerpts of some examples of some of the things he has said in his book, here's one from, I think, this year's On the Canadian Club Chronicles, issue number 1, Warders of Windsor's age 41 years. Have I had this much fun with a sexy 41-year-old Canadian before? Well, yes, I have. But it was a few years back now, and it wasn't a whiskey. Was the fun we had better? Probably not. It is hard to imagine what we could, as the whiskey simply seduces you with the lightness of knowledgeable meaning of its touch, butterfly kissing your taste buds, finding time after time your whiskey erogenous zone, or G-spots, and then surrendering itself with a tender and total submission. Nice. All right.
I have a feeling that this story went on in his head, but he just stopped writing.
Yeah, I have a feeling too. I'm sure he actually had a vision that just kept on going. And here's another one from 2017. On Highland Park 40-year-old, like a 40-year-old woman who has kept her figure and looks, and now only satin stands in the way between you and so much beauty in her experience. And believe me, she's spicy.
When I first read that,
I'm fine with that.
When I first read that, I was just like, wait, are we talking about Satan now? But it was satin. Yeah.
It's satin. I don't know why that's offensive, but okay. But I'm a 49-year-old woman, so maybe I'm just immune to this kind of thing. So Jim Murray's response to this outrage was basically saying that he will not cower to the crowd or cancel culture. And I quote, I am a professional writer and use language that adults for the Whiskey Bible is designed for adults that they can relate to. I paint pictures of whiskey, and if that, on the rare occasion, is a picture of a sensation that formulates in my mind, then I say so, and I have every right to. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which way you lean, many within the industry have responded by denouncing their support for Jim Murray, pulling his books, and much more. So, I have a question to you all. Is this taking this too far? So, I agree his writing is a bit out of touch. And it's a bit outdated for these modern times where people get offensive, but to ruin his career?
I don't think
That's
that
what,
I don't think we have the power to ruin his career. He's built up a fan
So,
base of 1 million people, and
right.
it's like if people didn't like what he was writing, they wouldn't have been listening for all these years. And why is it incumbent on the world to shut this person down who has built an empire for himself? Like, we can just choose not to participate in it. I don't understand why. I mean, it's like, this is just one guy with a blog. There's millions of people like this that say way worse shit than this.
yeah.
Like, I just don't understand. Like we can participate in like companies like Beam Centauri have come out and said, like, hey, listen, like we appreciate the acknowledgement, but we don't like the source of this award, so we'll politely, I don't think they declined the award, but they just kind of downplayed it, like, as in, thanks, we know we make great whiskey and this is a great validation, but this guy kind of sucks. And I just don't understand. It's like if we were to award somebody with some shitty language, some award, like what would people look at us and say? They'd be like, no, I don't like you, so this doesn't mean much to me. And then you'd walk
Right.
away and talk about something else.
Right. I think I kind of land in Lane's camp a little bit. First of all, I've never read any of his books, so it shocks me to know that he's got a million sales out there. Like, I've never even seen one come. And I'm a pretty prolific reader of books, especially about what we do, right? So it's pretty shocking to me that I've never even heard of this guy until this article, which I did read before earlier this week before you guys reached out to me. And I think it's just it's very prose, right? He's writing in prose, and that's romanticizing his target of what he's writing about, right? He's writing about whiskey. He's romanticizing it. But we do that with a lot of things, especially these sort of analogies towards the female form, right? Boats are all named after women, and they're thought of as sleek and lean and sexy. Cars.
Hurricanes.
So I don't know that yeah, well, hurricanes get alternately named after men and women
Now, but they used to until recently they were all women.
I didn't know that.
I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah, until like 10 years ago.
I grew up
they're all
I
women.
grew up with hurricanes all my life. I never noticed. I don't know that it offends me. And again, I kind of would fall back on his own words where he said, this is a book for adults. Kids aren't reading this stuff, so you can let a little bit of that water roll off your back. This is how I interpret this particular whiskey, I guess. Is it to my taste? I could take it or leave it.
Right.
I don't know that this would make me, if I was a fan of his, as mentioned, I've never heard of him. I don't know if this would make me go like, all right, I've had enough of him. He finally went too far.
This is only a few quotes. He has 1,500 reviews in his book. This is there's 10 of these.
Yeah,
out of 1,500.
He does this all. He does this all the time. Like, this is.
It's a small percentage of what he writes, and I get Betty Paskin's point is that she thinks because women have fought so hard, and I get it. She has a very point of view. She's worked in whiskey for a long time, and it has always been a man's category, right? So men have been in it, men dominate it, and women had to fight hard to gain their place and respect. That people, when a woman walks up to a whiskey table, I mean, it still happens. If I go up to a whiskey table, if I don't spout some things about, what's the age it came, what's the temperature it came off the still, like the proof it came off the still, or how many years it's been aged, and if you don't spit some whiskey knowledge, that wasn't any good whiskey knowledge I just spouted, but if you don't spout anything, then the distiller just kind of sometimes will dismiss you and be like, here's the most popular stuff, go
No,
away.
I completely agree with that angle, and certainly I empathize with that struggle. And women do face that, and especially strangely in the whiskey category. I don't think they face it in any other category to such a level. But I don't think that this language is tearing away at that fabric. I feel like this is maybe, like you said, it's maybe a little bit outdated, but I don't know. Let's go back and there's a line between crass and ribald. Is it just?
Yeah.
I
didn't find it that crass. I mean, I found it a little ew because he's an old man, and just the thought of him doing it. But at the same time, I'm like,
I'm an old man.
He likes sex and he likes whiskey. He likes women, and he's not saying bad things about women. And in my mind, I don't think he's saying bad things. I mean, I don't know. But for me, it's the thing that's happening is I'm seeing it fine. You can write a letter and put something out there in the world and say, this is my opinion. my thought is this. It's like, but I've also heard that she's trying to get him taken off Amazon, out of Barnes and Noble, like really going after these, like, and saying nobody should carry this person's book. And that to me
It's
goes
just
to like book burning.
That's
Like,
gonna that's gonna do nothing but embolden him, first of all. But also, second, like when you talk about book burning, it's like this is, in my opinion, the specific language notwithstanding, like this is a First Amendment issue as far as I'm concerned. Like you can write what you want, especially if you're self-published, especially if you've done all the work yourself and you've like said these are my written words, these are the analogies and the metaphors that I'm going to use, and I don't have to apologize to anybody because I'm completely taking all the risk here. So if you don't like it, don't buy it.
Exactly.
But this is protected free speech, and it's like, it may suck, so you may not like it. And I'll go ahead and say that I don't completely understand what it feels like to be represented in this way in a publication. But it's just like you can't say burn your books because you don't like what I say. That's just kind of patently un-American.
It does. It's taking it too far. And that's the danger of cancel culture. And most reasonable people don't say anything about it because they're afraid to get canceled themselves. So it is a very fine line that we're all like going on. And it keeps me up at night. I literally have conversations that I want to put out there on Facebook and I just don't. So I'm saying it here.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is a case of, as Jason already kind of stated, like you don't have to participate. If this isn't for you, then just don't pick it up. Mm-hmm. He has his fan base. They pick it up. It's everybody. No one's hurting anybody maliciously. If it's offensive to you, then change the channel.
Yeah, and also let him know. Has anybody called him? He said in his letter, sorry, Jason, he said, nobody's ever written me or said anything to me that they are offended by this. So did anybody, this is the one thing I always hate when people take things online into social media. I'm like, did you call him up? Did you send him an email? Did you say, hey, dude, like I read your book and I'm really offended by this? Like, did you at least give him the heads up to maybe he can apologize?
I mean, we can relate this right down to operations, right? When you say, I got this terrible Yelp review. Did they say anything to the management before they left? Did they bring up the issue with their server before they left?
Mm-hmm.
They just went home and fumed for a while and then fired off something on a loudspeaker that goes to the world instead of speaking directly to the person who could have fixed the problem. Right?
Oh yeah. Are you getting any? Are you getting any pushback from having to close at 11? Just while we're on talking about Yelp reviews.
I
mean, I don't know if that's an appropriate segue, but I feel like we explored the sexism and whiskey issue.
Yes, we're good. Well, we can talk about craft whiskey now if you want.
Yeah, we can move to the next one. But side note about myself, pretty, I guess, interesting thing. Have never once read Yelp, will never read Yelp. I don't care. I get up, I go to work, I do my best every day, and then I close the shop and I go home. Like, if you don't like what I do, don't participate. I don't really care what you think.
No, that's a good segue.
It's a good, and that's a very good mental, exactly, way of being. I agree. And
I mean, I talk to all my friends who are operators, and even when I see people post online on their social media regarding, oh, we got a bad Yelp review, tears me up and blah blah blah, and I just have a standard response: don't read Yelp, you'll sleep better.
Yeah.
Who cares?
I deleted Facebook from my phone, so I just don't look at it so often.
That's a fun productivity hack.
Yeah,
that's strong.
All right. So speaking of productivity hacks, can craft whiskey survive the pandemic?
That's a terrible segue.
I know, it's a terrible. Whatever. We do it every single week. It's the same terrible segue. It was just like I'm like a blunt instrument, All right. So according to data from American Craft Spirits Association, more than 50% of distilleries have laid off employees during the pandemic, and more than 70% of craft distilleries report declines in orders from their distributors. Also, nearly 85% of craft spirits producers report sales are down. That's kind of I think we probably all knew that. So currently craft distillers are lobbying Congress for relief packages that will help them survive, as well as requesting the government keep the current federal excise tax break in place. So for those of you who may not remember, in 2017, in a rare instance of brilliance, President Trump signed into law a 2-year federal excise tax break for craft distillers, which allowed them to pay only $2.70 for the first of each of the first $100,000 proof gallons, 100,000 proof gallons. So the first 100,000 gallons that they produced, they had a very low tax rate. This break helped breathe a lot of life into the expanded craft industry, who was then able to take these savings and reinvest them back into their distilleries, into marketing, sales, and giving them a fighting chance against the big guys. And so we saw a lot more bottles go on the shelves. So the break was extended this year, but is set to expire on December 31st. And so if it's not extended, craft distillers will see a 400% tax increase, which, coupled with tariffs and this like crazy tariff war and current business climate, will decimate the industry yet again, as if a pandemic wasn't enough to wipe it out. So now we have to tax the shit out of them. So the craft industry employs over 25,000 people directly, and another 100,000 people indirectly through the distributors and bottlers and all that stuff. So craft distillers tend to be more innovative and help keep the spirits sector interesting. So Sother, I know you're a big proponent of putting a lot of really small, obscure bottles on your back bar. What do you think about this story?
I mean, this is going to be really detrimental to this segment, and the pandemic has already been detrimental. We all know that retail sales of spirits have exploded during the pandemic, but the problem for craft,
that's our next story. We're talking about that.
But the craft world hasn't seen that same explosion. You think to yourself, well, why is that? It turns out, and we've seen it on the operations level of the bar too, it turns out that people are desperately seeking, during this time anyway, comfort, right? And craft is somewhat edgy. So, craft spirits have really suffered because people are going to the liquor store, or ordering online during the pandemic or whatever, and they're ordering the thing they know, the thing that's familiar, the thing that they can easily put into a glass and drink. They're not so keen on trying a new cachaça or a new product of any kind, because now isn't the time for deviation or experimentation. Now's the time for comfort, and we're seeing that again on the operations level. People are eating and drinking things that are comforting, So so I think that this will be, if that tax is put into place, that jump of 400%. I mean, think about that for anything. The listener, if any of your products that you purchase on a regular basis were to jump by 400%, you'd drop that product. So that cost is going to have to trickle down to the consumer in some way, and I think it'll be really bad, really, really bad.
Yeah. I mean, do you carry, is there still brands you still have on your shelf, or are you kind of going through stock? I know a lot of people are just.
So largely during the pandemic, we have ordered almost nothing because so don't forget, my bar is in a complex of bars, 3 bars in the same building, two of which closed during the pandemic and will never reopen, sadly. So I'm chipping away at their inventory plus mine. So the only thing we've really had to order through this are the products to keep some of our longtime menu items ongoing. The Adamaro Sazerac, I see Jason's wearing my shirt. We have to, thanks for that. We have to order for that one because it's been on the menu since the day we opened, but minimal ordering. We're trying to chip away at the inventory that's on hand instead of spending any money. But to that end, Jason mentioned I have a lot of small bottles, so not necessarily what I would call craft, but I have a lot of, my bar is built on Amaro, which is kind of a craft segment in its own right. And none of those guys are very big, but I do have things like Jay Rieger Kansas City Whiskey and his Cafe Amaro. That's a tiny place in Kansas City. I have Southern Amaro from Highwire Distilling. I have Breckenridge bitters from Breckenridge Distillery in Breckenridge. So I have a lot of crafty little stuff on the bar, and I want to keep them. And we've seen some of them disappear already during the pandemic, and it's sad. Yeah, it's sad.
Wow.
I'm struggling to think of the name right now, but an Oregon distiller that made a Fernet, Townsend Distillery, is shuttered due to COVID. So we'll never see that product again. And it's we're taking away, some of our crayons out of the box. What happens when all these unique things disappears? We're left with sort of just the beiges and the browns and the whites, I guess.
Yeah, the liquor store is going to be so boring. Like after this time, if you actually start exploring it, it's like you're going to start seeing less and less of other brands out there. And like, I like to go in there, be like, oh, I've never seen that whiskey before. I'll give that a try.
Right.
I do like to try. I mean, I work in the industry, so we're probably more experimental because that's just who we are. But yeah, now it's just going to be, as you said, beige, which is not going to be as much fun. So for all of these who are listening, buy craft. Go and find your local craft distiller that you like. Support them. Go online. Order from them. A lot of them can ship directly to you now, like within state. Some are finding ways to be able to ship across state lines. So yeah, it's if you want to keep them in business,
Yeah.
3 bottles.
Yeah, I think it's important, like I would suggest to the consumer, if you're based on the data that we have, the numbers, the sales numbers have gone up incredibly. I would say, just try and I know that you can't get to your favorite bar and restaurant right now as often as you'd like, so you're drinking more at home instead. I would say, like, split off 25% of your own personal buying, and every 4th bottle, make it something that's unique, and try and keep that segment alive,
Absolutely. And also you can reach out to your Congress and help them. The change.org, I'm constantly sponsoring things and giving money to change.org when there's things about discus coming through, about reaching out to your local government. And it's so easy. It's like literally just hit 2 buttons and they send a letter to your local senator or whatever. So if you see anything about the taxes, federal tax, excise tax, coming your way, about, keeping it, at this current level, just send them. You just click it and send it away. And it's such it'll take you 2 minutes and you'll help support, hopefully, to keep a movement moving in the right direction.
I mean, this reminds me of just like, I feel like I have like worry fatigue, where I like worry about so many different things that like I have a difficult time really giving a shit about one thing at a time. So it's like when you think about like these craft producers that are they're almost certain to shutter, especially if this tax issue comes into pasture. That would kill everybody. But it's like we also have Mitch fucking McConnell trying to put in a Supreme Court judge, and I'm just like, oh my God, that's really important. It's like, wait a second, there's a tariff war. Oh my God, that's important.
Voting, getting people to vote.
And like part of me is just like, I can't give a shit about all this stuff, so I'm going to give a shit about none of this stuff.
Yeah,
pick
one. Pick voting.
Yeah, it's a thing called constant partial attention. You're giving constant partial attention to so many things that eventually, just like your senses, like if you live near the freeway like I do, I don't hear it anymore. If you live near a refinery and it stinks, you don't smell it anymore. So constant partial attention to so many things, eventually you stop really seeing or caring about any of them. And we're overloaded right now. The civil rights movement, the political climate, all these things that are going on with the industry that we're in, the pandemic as a whole. Like, we've got too many things that we're giving our constant partial attention to.
Absolutely, yeah. Now I know the terminology for it. Now I know what I'm suffering.
CPA.
Constant partial. Constant partial, which is a weird dichotomy. Constant partial.
It's a paradox.
Yeah.
You can do what I do. I just distract my brain. I always have something like a bad TV show playing. It just like whenever my brain starts worrying and like the rabbits start going, and then I just have a TV show to distract them. Like I put the bunnies to the right and they're just like distracted by the thing happening over here, so I can concentrate on what I'm working on.
That's what they want you to do.
Yeah.
What's your bad TV show of choice? I've got one too. I do the same thing.
Oh God! But right now, I literally, because I've gone through all of them, and now it's a girl show. It's Ally McBeal. It's like from a long time.
I remember Ally McBeal.
Yeah.
The little dancing baby, right?
The little dancing baby. Yeah, the little dancing baby. So it keeps my mind. The bunnies have something to watch, so I can concentrate on what's important.
I fall asleep almost every night to CSI Miami because that show is so stupid.
Yeah,
like it is just plainly stupid. It makes no sense how they operate as policemen. The acting is pretty terrible. Like it puts me to sleep. I turn it on and within 15 minutes I'm out like a light. It's better than a sleeping pill.
It is better than a sleeping pill. Sometimes you just need to distract the voices. We all sound crazy now. All right. So speaking of things that are crazy, UK bars take another hit as a 10 p.m. curfew is put into place. So Boris Johnson has just announced that pubs and restaurants in England will have to close at 10 p.m. as part of the new rules that UK government is setting out to slow the spread of coronavirus. This is happening despite statistics showing that only 5% of COVID cases occur in bars and restaurants. The loss of the last 2 hours may not seem very big to a layperson or very detrimental, but the reaction, and you were talking about this, Sother, before, but the reaction from the hospitality industry is one of outrage and despair, because this is a huge hit to their business. So according to Alex Urtania and Monica Berg, owners of Elementary and Taylor, 70% of the bar business in London happens between 10 p.m. and midnight. The loss of these sales will decimate their business, and they're not alone in this field. Bar owners across Europe are all feeling the same thing. Denmark is about to experience the same thing. Scotland says it's coming soon. And I think it'll be a nail in the coffin for so many people. So Sother, I know we talked about this before the show. So as a bar operator, what is the time frame for you right now?
New York, we're required to hard out by 11 p.m., right? So we're not technically allowed to even have you linger, right? But all of us kind of do, because we're still trapped in old earth mentality, which is hospitality. So we come around to every table and we say, we've already given last call. We've made sure every check is closed by 11 o'clock, and then we'll say, as we're breaking things down, you kind of got to move along. So we kind of let them linger till 11:30ish, but they can't order anything at that point. We've killed service. It's tough. 11 o'clock is tough in New York City, the city that never sleeps. Being told to head on home at 11 p.m. it's a difficult transition for people. At the same time, though, I feel like our country as a whole has, well, quite obviously, we've handled this pandemic pretty poorly, and I think it's we've sadly normalized it. We just figured out how to work around it, which I think is a very American thing to do. Just workarounds. So we figured out how to work around it instead of facing it and solving it and knocking it out. So from a business standpoint, to be closed at 10, like what the UK is facing, it sounds very detrimental. But at the same time, for solving the problem, it sounds like it might be the right thing to do. What needs to be done, I think, is a greater appeal to the public on a platform that's larger than our individual platforms. I keep banging the drum on my social media sites, begging basically my guests, look, come 11 o'clock, you've got nowhere else to go. So why are you showing up at 10:30? I need the business early, because as mentioned in the article, the lion's share of our business is done in that last hour. Mm-hmm. But I open up at 6 o'clock and I sit there half empty or more empty for an hour. Come earlier is the
right.
Try that if we're gonna have to do this, come earlier. If you're gonna drink, X number of drinks tonight, or you want to drink whatever that number is, 3 drinks tonight, but if you arrive at 10:30, you're only getting 1.
Right.
So arrive at 9:30, arrive at 7:30 if you can, and have your 3 drinks, and then go home and watch
social habits, right?
Yeah, and then go home and watch Ally McBeal. Go home and watch Ally McBeal to calm your nerves or whatever.
I'm just curious, like if they're limiting you to open at 5 hours, what if you were able to choose the 5 hours that you were open? I mean, what is the intent behind this? Is it to get people to?
I'm not limited to be open 5 hours.
Is it to get people to not be drunk in bars? Is it to limit how much people drink in bars, or is it to limit? Because what I'm getting at is that if the bars were staggered opening, but they only had 5 hours to be open, and you were able to choose the most profitable 5 hours to be open, for instance, you'd pick obviously the later hours. You'd pick 11 to 4 if you had a 4 o'clock license in New York. But
right.
But I'm just curious what the intention of this is. Why stop at 11? What specifically is the reason? Is it because they know that people come out later? In your opinion?
Well, I want to address 2 things. One, the 5 hour thing. We're not limited to 5 hours. If I wanted to open at noon, I could open at noon. But
right.
In fact, in the beginning, we were opening at 5 p.m., but we realized pretty quickly no one shows up until 6:30. So we were just killing an hour of labor, which we already can't afford because we're pinched as it is. So we started opening at 6, and even some days I think to myself, should I just wait and open at 7? But then you're saying to yourself, I only have 4 hours of service. Mm-hmm. And we still have to pay rent. We still have to pay the team. Right now it's minimum 3 times our normal labor to acquire what's amounting to about a quarter of our normal revenue. So the model doesn't work in general. But why early? I don't know. That's the constant question that you see all over social media. People are saying is it that I can't contract COVID after 11 p.m.? What's the deal?
Right.
So I don't know. What I do know is that in New York anyway, we're required to now, you as the consumer are required to order food with your first round of drinks, and that is twofold. One, it's to keep people from moving around, right? If you have food in front of you, you're seated. So it stops people from mingling, which we're not allowed to do anyway. If you come to the outdoor seating that we have, you're required to wear your mask until you're seated. Once you're seated, you can take your mask off, and you're not allowed to stand up and mingle around at all. Really, if you stand up, you have to put your mask back on to go to the restroom inside or what have you. But the idea is to keep people seated, keep people from mingling, keep people from, talking to other people, getting in their faces, breathing, all the things that transmit this problem. But I still really can't wrap my mind around why we have to stop at 11. Like, if I'm doing all the things that you told me to do, why can't I do it till my normal hours?
I think people start to get I think it's historically people have more drinks towards the end of the day, and and then they start being more reckless, and
they get more rowdy and they get more reckless. They take off their masks. They
start talking louder.
Inhibitions get dropped. Sugar level in the body goes up. So louder talking and all the things we know to be true. So again, there are parts of it that I see and I understand, but generally speaking, and I don't want to take the show onto a topic or a direction that you don't want to go. Generally speaking, my personal opinion is we should still simply not be open. I don't like being there. I feel that we are part of the problem. We're an attractive nuisance. We draw people out when maybe they shouldn't be out. We offer them a drug that limits their inhibitions and again makes them do things that they're not in line with what should be done to get this thing over with. And when you think about the fact that quarantining when you travel or when you come in contact with someone, to quarantine for 14 days gets it out of the system. That means that if we just stopped and stayed home for 14 days, this shit would be over.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Everybody did it. Yeah.
Here we are 7 months in, and businesses are like, I read Eater every day, and it's effectively an obituary page for all my colleagues.
Yeah. No, it's really awful. No, and you're right. I know you're not the only one who's had that ethical conflict. Like I'm here and I'm contributing to the problem, and I'm putting myself in danger, my staff in danger, I'm putting these people in danger. But it's like,
and the problem is
Sweden. They just kept things as normal, and now they're down to like normal rates.
Yeah. But so
I would say let's go to Sweden, but we're not allowed.
Yeah,
exactly. That's the thing. There's certainly that moral issue that I grapple with, and as an employee, I think you have a better opportunity to err to the side of your own morality. But as an owner, I don't. The government has said I can open, which means my landlord says pay me.
Yeah.
If the government said I couldn't open, I'd have a better negotiating power with my landlord. But I don't have that because the government says I can be open till 11 o'clock. So my landlord's like, why aren't you open?
Right. And why aren't you paying? Yeah.
I need that rent money, baby. So, I feel frankly trapped.
That's
okay. I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice in the matter.
That really sucks.
It does.
I know, and you've been very eloquently expressing yourself, and thank you for being so open about it. At one point you're just like, why the fuck am I doing this? And that's a very difficult position to be in, especially when you have a responsibility to your staff, and it's like they're suffering too. Everybody's suffering. There's no win.
I gave everybody the option. I said, you don't have to. I won't quote unquote rat you out to the government and say I asked them to come back and they didn't, so take them off unemployment. Like, I'm not gonna. If you don't feel safe here, why would I want you here?
Yeah.
I don't want you coming to work every day feeling unsafe. And we do feel unsafe. We wear our masks, we wear gloves, we sanitize everything over and over and over, and then we deal with people who aren't in the same mentality as far as safety first goes, and we're handing them a drug that limits their inhibitions. Like, it's a recipe for potential disaster. I think we're pretty adept at handling people because of our training over the years of being in the business, but it's still, there's tension. There's a lot of tension every day.
Yeah, no, come on. Everybody's in survival mode, and that's all we can do. So keep up the good fight there, Sother. You're doing a good job.
So speaking of keeping up the good fight, summer 2020 trends are likely to continue into October, November, December.
Yeah,
Terrible
you're great at
transition.
this
All right.
master of the segue, Jason
Yeah,
Littrell.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you. So according to Wine and Spirits Daily, who analyzed the Nielsen reports from over the summer, these are the top trends to date. I'm sorry, it's just going from that to this is kind of hilarious.
It is
That's all right.
hilarious.
So spirit sales are up 1.5 billion, or almost 30%, and that's so folks are drinking more. I wonder how that's going to impact the bottom line as far as.
Do you reckon that they're drinking more, or that they're drinking the same amount? It's just that they can't drink it at the bar anymore, so they're having to buy it.
Well, that's
Yeah,
what this
so-
article is about. Actually, it's
Yeah.
about how they've switched their dollars from on-premise to off-premise, and that's what they're. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
So, and what they're drinking is probably also commensurate with what they would order in a bar. So, whiskey is the largest growth contributor, accounting for 31% of the total off-premise spirits growth. Within whiskey, American whiskey was up just over 30%, and Japanese whiskey grew over 65%. So, hello, Beam Suntory, over the summer. So, while other whiskey segments grew at a slower pace. So tequila is also doing pretty well. Fastest growing category is up nearly 64%. And then other categories such as gin experienced an initial bump in off-premise sales in the first months of the pandemic, but have since slowed. So that means that they started off drinking martinis and being very sophisticated. And then they're just like, wait a second, this is too adult for me.
Exactly. Now they're just doing beer and shots.
right. And wine out of bags. That's your drink of choice. That was my autobiography right there. So I think the big surprise for many is that sales of cognac are also way up, and the category grew 43%, 43.8% actually for the first 3 months of COVID. So very sophisticated drinking in the beginning, March through May, and that growth has accelerated in recent months up to 61.1% over the summer. So
that number still blows me away.
Yeah, folks are drinking cognac. How about that?
I'm very excited to hear that. I've always been a fan of cognac, and in fact, random side note about me, I'm potentially going to be partnering in with a Armagnac called Chabot, a testament to the notion that you're always being interviewed. One of my regular guests from over 12 years ago, his family makes an Armagnac, and he sought me out during the pandemic to say, we have a modicum of success of sales in Asia, and we'd like to bring it to America, and we'd like to have you help us do it. So, Elaine, I might be reaching out to you for your expertise in branding and marketing.
Oh, absolutely, on-trade strategy every day.
Yeah, but I want to pick apart a few of these things that are interesting and also piss me off. Or was there a question in there for me first? I should get to that.
No. It's just that. Yeah. What have you noticed?
Nice mastery of the segue.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the thing that you sent me. Whiskey, largest contributor, up 31%. Man, that sounds totally normal for America. But also, I mean, based on what we just talked about how we could fix this problem and face it and then move on. I back in January, I had a piece of, meaning I was a partner in some way, of 5 bars. And now it's September, and I have 1.
Wow.
And one of those bars was Honeybees, which didn't even get to be a year old. It was going to be a year old in August. And it was my all-American whiskey bar. So it's painful for me to see that American whiskey is skyrocketing in sales when I had to shutter an American whiskey bar. And then tequila, I can wholeheartedly back that one up, the rise in sales. When this first started and summer was coming on and we were finally allowed to do limited outdoor seating, which is the phase that we're still in New York City, we have parking space seating, right? So we get to take over parking spaces in the street, and had to build a structure to do it. But it's a thing that's going on all over the city. Over 9,000 was the last count I saw. Over 9,000 street side cafes going on. It was hot in the summer. And every single outdoor cafe, including mine, was serving some form of spicy margarita. Like that was like the drink of the summer here in New York City. And that sounds to your listener probably like normal, but fold into the notion that at my bar we don't use any juice or any kind of sugar, and we don't shake drinks. Well, we fucking did this summer.
I was going to ask about that.
I was going to say, yeah. How did you do that?
Yeah, no, we broke our rules. I couldn't in good conscience ask people to sit in 100-degree weather and drink a Manhattan. I had to offer drinks
Sharpie
that had
mustache.
have a Sharpie mustache, have an Atomaro Sazerac. these things are rich and brooding and made for the nighttime and indoor enjoyment, So, we had to scramble our entire ethos, really. We were serving, my bar has never had vodka. We had a vodka hibiscus lemonade on the menu all summer long, like we really, and again, that was me chewing up some inventory from the other two bars, but also it was me just being a smart operator and saying, look, I can't, people are walking by and they don't see inside my bar, which is unique and small and has a lot of qualities that let you know where you are, right? When you walk into a sushi bar, you see the guys behind the counters with the big knives, and you see the fish in the little glass case, and you kind of know what's going on here, right? So if you're not walking in there, you don't know what's in there. You just see this outdoor cafe, which we appointed pretty beautifully, and it looks real nice and attractive. And so you think, well, look, this place looks nice. Let's get a mimosa, right? So you sit down, and then you see that the menu's all just dark, bitter drinks. And it's 110 degrees out on the streets of New York City, and it smells like, that would smell. I had to change the program. And this was difficult for me, but as an operator, you have to shift into business mode, and you have to say, well, that's just the way it is. But as a bartender, which I also am, and as my team of bartenders, they were like, this isn't the job that I signed on for. I didn't sign on to be a cafe server making, spicy margaritas. We just, just this past week, we took world's best spirits selection at Tales of the Cocktail. And
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. The little bar that could, so it's, so to use my sushi analogy, it's like having a team of sushi guys and then saying, you know what, for the summer and the foreseeable future, we're going to go outside and serve on the street hamburgers.
Yeah.
So those guys are like, I don't really know what I'm doing. This isn't what I signed on for. So, and it's confusing to us, our loyal guests who have been with us for 9 years, were coming and being like, what the fuck is this? And they would just get the things that they wanted. But you have to, we're not out here learning to swim. We're out here trying not to drown.
Yeah.
And there's a subtle but very important difference. So that's what's going on.
No, I hear you, because I've heard that a lot. Like, people are just sticking to the comfort. Like, it's the same thing like you're saying, like off-premise liquor stores. People are buying comfort brands. People want comfort drinks. They're not looking for experiential. They're not looking for something. They just want to drink something that they know is refreshing, like as you said. So I don't think it's wrong. I think it was great. It sounds like you figured out a good balance of keeping your traditional mixed in with some of the comfort drinks that you just need a customer.
Yeah.
You need more customers normal.
You need two customers that know each other, that don't live together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And slowly we've migrated back to what we do, not even by our own choice. It's very apparent to us that the drinks that we had on the menu with juice in them got, honestly, as the weather broke, they simply stopped being ordered. People know what we are, and also I think it also was gradual exchange of just the casual passerby to more of our kind of loyal clientele realizing that we are back in business. So that the crowd shifted and the weather shifted at the same time, and suddenly we're back to, we have no juice on the menu anymore. We've gotten rid of the vodka. We're back to quote unquote business as usual. We're back to what we do. We're still outside doing it in this random environment that we don't necessarily enjoy. But yeah, we're back.
I'm happy to hear that. Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
Your staff's probably really happy. I know it's still not ideal, but that's kind of awesome that you're able to kind of make the transition. You did what you had to do, and now you're back to being, it's the Margo we all know and love, except for outside.
Yeah. Except for outside.
Except for outside. So on that note, I don't know how to transition that one. So let's
see your segue skills here.
Exactly. On that note, into adjusting to the new normal or whatever that may be, Sother, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for jumping on the line with us and for coming on to our show. This is for all of you there. I know you already know this, but this has been the Industry Distilled. If you'd like the show, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Please share this with friends. Tune in next week for our guest, Chelsea Gregory. And if I just butchered your last name, I'm sorry, Chelsea. You can also find us on Instagram at The Industry Distilled, where you can see what our latest stories are about, or you can go, if you want to see our pretty faces live, you can see us at our Industry Distilled Facebook page. So until then, I'm
Sother, where do we find you on social media? Sorry, I forgot to put that.
Me? I'm a Creative Drunk on all platforms. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all of it. Creative Drunk, one word. You typing that in? Are you finally following me?
Never. I will never.
And if you'd
follow
like
you.
to find Sother on all his channels, including his new Facebook channel, you can find it at The Creative Drunk. So The Industry Distilled is written by me, Elaine Duff, produced by Jason and Littrell, edited and post-production by Danny Messina, fact-checking by nobody.
Nobody.
So if we fuck it up, we apologize.
Yeah.
And on behalf of Jason Littrell, I'm Elaine Duff, and that's it for this week, and we'll catch you next week on The Industry Distilled.
Bye.
Thanks so much,
everybody.
guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye,
that was
Sother.
awesome.
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna go back to bed.
Oh wow! Did we wake you up?
Yeah, I don't get up at this hour.
Oh wow! Amazing. Sorry. Well,
Go
you did
back to
great.
bed.
You talk like a very sophisticated person while you're half asleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am.